Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie. Hey guys, this is Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and today we have David. I'm not going to attempt your last name because I've heard it like a bunch of different ways, and in my mind, your name is like your identity, and I don't want to get that wrong. So I'll kind of just go over the things that I do know. David runs Military Millionaire. He has actually had my health coach on. So you've had Chad Molyneux?
Yep.
Yeah, Chad is my health coach. Love Chad. One of his head coaches, Megan, is like my personal coach. And thanks to her, I am now like 15 pounds down. Of course, I'm doing 75 hard too. So shout out to Mr. Priscilla because that program is absolutely killer. It is, we'll just say that instead of 75 days, I'm going to have to do at least 95. But yeah, fun stuff. So if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit, I will say though that before we go there, I am really impressed by your mission, just because I feel like our middle class is kind of disappearing. And I just love the fact that the people that you are trying to help are those struggling middle class people that you really want to help them secure that position in the middle class and even have that upward mobility too. So, and don't get me wrong, we are securely middle class. I'm not trying to pretend that we are something outside of that, but yeah. It's a scary thing when you start watching yourself in something other than upward mobility. So seeing that you're really trying to support that upward mobility is very, very awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. So it's David Pere, and you're right. There's a lot of pronunciations of it floating around. I just never correct anyone. I just at some point gave up. Was like, yeah, I'll own it. It's whatever. Yeah, but I've been in the Marine Corps now for next week will be 12 years, and been going at it for a while doing logistics. So I'm a transportation guy, drive trucks, run logistics around, been kind of stationed everywhere, been in Japan, a bunch of different places in the US, deployment and all that other good stuff. And in 2015, I, typical story, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, kind of got started in real estate investing, and it kind of grew from there. So I have just right on the cusp of the point where can say I've like replaced my income and be able to exit the military without having to worry about anything. So it's been good. And yeah, so the community started about 2.5 years ago, and it really just started with me just blogging and kind of documenting what I was doing. And then it quickly grew to much more than that. And now it's at a point where it's, our mission is to help, we niche to service members and veterans, but most of what I teach or talk about is applicable to just about anybody, and how to build wealth through real estate investing, entrepreneurship, personal finance. And I just kind of live by the mantra, like, look, it ain't that hard. If I can figure this out, and I'm just a, low paid, I actually hate when people say the military doesn't get paid enough, because it's kind of a victim mentality. But we don't make $200,000 a year, and so normal income, definitely normal work hours, if not more. And, if we can figure it out, then I think anyone can figure it out. So,
yeah, well, I just thank you so much for basically putting your life before mine. And, that's a weird way to say it, but I mean, like, for putting yourself up for others. That is amazing. I grew up next to Fort Hood. We currently live right here next to Shepherd Air Force Base. So a lot of my friends are military. They were military growing up. They're military wives now. But it's a huge sacrifice. And just thank you. That's thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been a good job most of the time. It's been fun. All right. So I felt like this was an applicable presentation. When we were talking, could have talked finances, could have talked real estate, could have talked anything, but I've noticed that kind of my superpower is networking. Most of my platform's been built through networking, connecting people, and content marketing, and just learning all this stuff the hard way. And I feel like not enough people touch on this. So I hey, it's a good little niche topic for me. Not a whole lot of people are running around saying, hey, here's how you network and here's how you can use content marketing to build a brand or a business or whatever. And without like charging a whole bunch of money for it. And I'm just your normal dude, right? So everything that you see of me is done at like 4 a.m. or late at night or on weekends. I still work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And it definitely just a consistency thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on all this. As far as networking, here's my super short intro, in essence, just what we already talked about. But, I got started I learned how to network. I've always been a talker, but I first got like formally taught about networking and sales and presenting as a recruiter for the Marine Corps. So I did 3 years as a recruiter, and they teach you all about speaking and stuff. And yeah, so the first little bit in here is actually like, this is straight out of like Marine recruiter curriculum, a lot of this stuff. So like basic networking 101, and I'm going to just kind of wave tops on this. And then, if people have questions, then awesome. And if not, then awesome. But, so the first thing to networking is building rapport, right? And people don't always talk about this, but building rapport is how you build trust in a relationship, right? So you want to be able to essentially build that relationship. The entry part is just getting to know people, right? And getting to where you're kind of on the same page. So building rapport is like just getting in close with someone and like that initial contact where like you guys have something in common, you don't hate each other's guts, and it's like the first impression, right? And so you do this to facilitate trust. You want to build trust with somebody so that they'll at least talk to you. And the ways that you can do this, the simple way is to demonstrate your values, find common ground, match and mirror. And then I threw touch in there, and I'll explain in a minute. That one's kind of an iffy one, but demonstrating your core values is like just dressing nice, right? Like you wouldn't go to a Marine Corps ball wearing like clothes that you got off a homeless person, right? You would dress up, you would look the part. And so it's who you want to be. So people always say like, I always hesitate to use examples for this, but like, people say, they dress that way. It doesn't mean that you should think those thoughts, or whether it's like a provocatively dressed lady or a bummy dressed dude, there's like an instant judgment. And the reality is, whether it's right or not that there's a judgment, we all know there's a judgment. And if you dress that way, that's how people are going to view you. So if you wear a suit to a meeting, people are going to have a good first impression of you. And if you wear sweatpants to a meeting, people are not going to have a good first impression of you. So demonstrating your values through how you look. Unfortunately, yes, we do judge books by the cover. Use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that too. And it's not always being in a 3-piece suit, but being present with, just being clean, not wearing breakfast on your shirt. I have seen all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it's looking well put together. And I've had people say to me before, well, I'm not that good looking. And honestly, yes, we do judge. We judge by the way the cover is. Yep. But if someone is taking care of their presence and how they present themselves, that goes a whole lot further than someone just being good looking. So, yep. I mean, that's my personal feeling on it. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can look like trash and be an attractive human being. So, and so the next piece there is finding common ground, which is just having something in common to talk to. So like we used to do weird things as recruiters to try to start this off. And by weird, I just mean like my thing was watches. If someone had a watch on, like my initial find common ground was to just immediately start talking to them about their watch. Oh, that's a cool watch. What kind of watch is that? Oh, awesome. I have this one. Why do you, one of the recruiters, his thing was shoes, but if you can just find something about that person that you have in common. If you like their sunglasses, and even if it's not anything you have in common, you can start just on the right foot by being like, oh man, that's a really interesting shirt. What's that? What's that logo? Or I like your shorts, or, whatever it is, like just something to get them kind of open up and talking about. If you have common ground and you can discuss it, right, that's great. But if you don't have common ground and you don't seem to have much in common, just ask them about their hobbies or about what they're wearing or whatever. And you're just trying to get the conversation flowing and show that you're, similar people. And then
that's so funny too, because like before we started recording, one of the comments I made was, hey, I grew up next to Fort Hood. I live now next to, Shepherd Air Force Base, because in that effort to find common ground, I established myself as someone that's familiar with the military. Because I grew up in those places. I could have also gone into the fact that my grandfather was an MP, or my grandmother was a librarian at Darnell Army Hospital, or, I could have gone further. My brother's a Marine, my cousin's a Marine. I could do things to find common ground, but I think that so many people, I guess, discard that or discredit that as being a very effective piece for establishing quick relationships, that it just kind of gets overlooked a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It should be natural, but it's not. And so then we dig into matching and mirroring, which people get this twisted all the time, but like matching and mirroring doesn't mean that if I go like this, you should immediately cross your arms, but it does mean paying attention to little things and trying to emulate. So if you're talking to someone over lunch and you see them lean back in their chair, that could be a sign that they're not interested in talking to you, but you can still lean back in your chair. And so you just try to emulate like normal body language, because and it's weird, it's awkward. If you see someone cross their legs and then you cross your legs, you're going to think it's strange, but they're not going to notice because their brain is like, that's a similarity. So their brain is just automatically going to be okay with it or whatever. Like, unless you're looking for it, you're never going to notice if someone's matching and mirroring, but you will notice if you're, sitting all casual and somebody else is just mean mugging you. So you just kind of want to emulate their body posture and what they're doing. And then in a very similar vein is the touch piece, which is the body language side. And we're going to dig into body language more. I hesitate to say this because people will take it the wrong way. And at the end of the day, guys, like if you're a gentleman, this is probably not an arsenal that you need to utilize. You'll end up in trouble, but touch is extremely powerful for building rapport and in the right situation. So, you shake someone's hand and you can do the whole hand clasp or the bro hug or whatever, like that's acceptable stuff, but that feels like a better connection. The best example I can give for this in the right context is like when you have a waitress and maybe she puts her hand on your shoulder when she's talking to you. It's not inappropriate at all, but it's like an immediate connection. There's all kinds of studies about like if a girl puts her arm on your shoulder or something like that, like the touch piece is extremely, extremely powerful in building a connection. The problem is that, as a guy, you got to watch yourself because you can obviously get yourself in trouble even if you're not meaning to. But if you can learn how to use that, like I do the handshake with the forearm clasp or whatever, like those extra little pieces can definitely go a long way to build rapport with someone.
Yeah. One of the ones that I like, and part of that's because I taught middle school, but you joke with somebody and you kind of pop them in the arm, like you're playing around with them. And that's another way to get that touch piece in.
Yep.
In a way that's not intimidating and it's not considered like wrong.
Yeah.
I like the shoulder touch a lot because as a female, I find it very effective. Or I might, like if somebody's got their hand down, I might put my hand over their hand and be like, hey, look at me, especially when it was a student. But there's things you can do because when you put your hand on someone, it's like, boom, you've immediately got their attention. And so it's very, very strong. And I think it's much easier used by a female. So guys, sorry.
Yeah, not something that we have working in our favor, but still a very powerful tool in your arsenal. And then the next piece is just listening to them. And I could go on about this, but this is fairly self-explanatory, right? People like to talk about themselves. So let them listen to their story, ask open questions to clarify what they're saying. So if they're telling you a story or whatever, be like, oh, well, what's your favorite part about such and such? And just let them go, right? Give them some rope to run with or whatever. And then close questions if you're trying to confirm. So if if they say something and like if you're building rapport and you're finding common ground and you're asking questions about something that you don't know anything about, confirm it. Just be like, oh, so, you said this microphone is the best one for podcasting, right? Yes. Okay, cool. Well, like you're still getting them to talk, but if you ask closed questions, yes or no questions, you're going to end the dialogue much faster than if you ask open questions, which facilitate them continuing to share information. So just understanding that piece and listening to what they want to say. And I kind of like to touch on networking at conferences specifically because I think that's valuable. But the long story short here is you need to have a plan for who you want to meet, why you want to meet them, and what value you can bring them. So if you just go to a conference, you just wander around and talk to people, you might make some great connections, and that's wonderful. But the difference between you and a rock star like networker connector is that rock star will find a way to talk to the people who you might not get in front of, right? So I'm not saying all this to sound conceited or whatever, but like I went to a conference. I'm fairly good at getting in front of people that I want to get in front of at conferences. And for example, I went and got in front of one. I went to FinCon last year. There were like 3 people that I was like, okay, I just want to meet these 3 people. And if I meet these 3 people, then the whole rest of the conference is, you know, a win. So it's like, okay, well, how do I get in front of this person? How do I get in front of this person? How do I get in front of this person? How do I make an impression? How do I make sure they're at least willing to talk to me? And then how can I bring some value to them, right? And you may not be able to bring value to them, but you just need to find a way. So you never know what that might look like. For example, at this conference, now I'm not going to name names, but of the 3 people, I met 2 of them. There was a YouTuber like meetup at a bar, and I went and just hung out, right? And I was just in the area, made sure I talked to him, you know, whatever. But through that, I was able to actually the next day, they needed someone to help them film a video for their channel. And so I literally spent like 4 hours driving around Washington, D.C. with a camera recording a video with these guys. So I got plenty of time spent with them, but also I got some networking, built some value, you know, they at least know who I am, right? And then the third person, I was at a total loss for how to get in front of this person, especially because they didn't even show up at the event till the day that they were speaking. And I basically just made sure I sat in the front row. I was, you know, eager to participate, answer questions, take notes. I actually, ironically, and this was not planned, but it worked out perfectly, I ended up sitting next to his wife. So, and they like, there was an open seat. She sat down. I'm like, well, this doesn't get any better. But you know, ultimately I would have been able to talk to the guy anyway, but I actually built enough of a relationship there that like I've been on his YouTube channel. He's been on my podcast since then. We've actually invested in a deal together. And all of that from just making sure like I'm right here, I'm paying attention, I'm participating, I'm taking notes. And, you know, as soon as it's over, I walk up and start talking about you and how awesome you were and how much I appreciate you. Not people too quick to talk about themselves, which is fine, but that's not how you get involved with somebody who's a high performer or whatever. So you have that plan. And then you need to make sure that for everybody else, like you have a short elevator pitch down, right? So like a short 20 seconds, maybe 30, but no more than that. Like a really short, who I am, what I do, why they should care, and then, you know, ask about them and listen, right? So the point of the elevator pitch is just to say, like, for example, hi, I'm David Pere. I'm the founder of the Military Millionaire community. We help service members and veterans learn how to build wealth through real estate, entrepreneurship, personal finance. Short, sweet, whatever. And, you know, you can throw in like a more of a why should you care at the end there, like depending on who the person is. I customize that. I play with it. Nowhere do I have this elevator pitch written down. It's just learning like who you are and what you do, and then being confident repeating it. It comes with practice, but it should be short and sweet because ultimately they want to talk about themselves. And if you want to make a good impression, you're going to let them talk about themselves. So ask about them and then shut up and listen, right? Like that's the piece there. And obviously all of networking isn't listening, because otherwise I'd be the worst networker in the world because I'm entirely too talkative. But you got to get that out of the way, right? Like you got to get them information flow. And if you're smart, you can listen to what they say about themselves and very quickly identify if there's a synergy there, or if they're like, oh, nice to meet you, but you know, your card is going to go in the stack of business cards that, you know, ends up in the drawer, right? Like this, when you go to an event and you get back from an event and you've got my small stack, but just like cards upon cards upon cards, which is fine. But you want to end up in the stack of cards. I literally get home, I set cards on my desk at the end of every day, and it's like, call, maybe, call, nice to meet you, call, nice to meet you. And the only way you end up in the call section is if we have something in common or something we can help each other with. Not to say I don't want to meet everybody, but the goal of networking is to figure out like who you can help, who can help you, and who's worth building a relationship with. So if you realize quickly that this person might be a great person, but they're not in your sphere of influence, or they're not someone that you can help or they can help. And you don't always know that, but you know, there's nothing wrong with moving on to talk to someone else. So just understand that. And I guess that's a little bit about networking at conferences.
Yeah. Now you said something that I find kind of interesting there. You said that like you went to a conference and basically you chose like your 3 top people that you wanted to speak to while you were there. I am really bad at like prioritizing. When I go up somewhere, it's like, I just want to meet everybody. And I love talking. And when I get in a crowd, I'm like energized. My husband is such an introvert. He's like, oh my God, please just let me go to the room and rest. I'm like, no, isn't this exciting? I love this. But I feel like if I was better at saying, okay, I want to meet these 3 to 5 people and really target on that I would get more out of it. And my husband would be way happier with me. So how do you decide that?
Ultimately, it's usually selfish reasons. So in this case, with those 3 individuals, all 3 were YouTubers, all 3 are investors, and all 3 are channels that I enjoyed following. So 2 of them are big real estate YouTubers, and the other is just a general finance and a military background. And I just knew that all 3 of them were people that I, would love to be able to do a collaboration with, but just in general knew like, okay, these are people doing what I want to do. Just any bit of time I can get with them or networking I can do with them is going to work in my favor. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes it's just somebody I really want to shake their hand and say thank you, for whatever. And sometimes it's just, I don't really have anyone and I just wing it, which is totally fine. I'm good at all of that. But I like to set a few goals and try to find at least 1 or 2 people that I'm like, yeah, that would be the perfect person for me to find, because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. Like if you're telling yourself that, one of the keynote speakers is somebody that you have to meet, it's going to push you out of your comfort zone for networking. And it's also going to open a lot of doors if you can succeed. Relationship building is all about quality over quantity, but I definitely enjoy, talking to a lot of people too. So I did put this in here. I feel like people have become much better at this. I put this in here months ago, but virtual networking opportunities, like this, right? Zoom socializing.
Absolutely.
Virtual meetups, attend real estate investor associations virtually, podcasts, forums. Like there's all kinds of ways to network virtually and just take advantage of those opportunities when you can. And I mean, the reality is like since COVID, I've spoken at a big event. I've spoken at a few RIAs, and I've spoken at like my favorite of those is that I invest in Southwest Missouri, and I've been trying to make it to their RIA meeting for like 4 years now, but I've not
cool.
lived
So you
in the
got to do it
state.
virtual.
And I got to speak at their event virtually and meet a bunch of the people that were there. So that was really cool to me. Yeah. So that was awesome to me, was that I finally had that opportunity, and, eventually I'll be there in person, but much better than just continuing to not make it to the RIA. And then, there's social media, there's all these other ways that you can stay present and network. And if you want to get in touch with someone who's got a big social media following, the biggest secret is just be social, like share their stuff, comment on their stuff. If somebody wanted to get a hold of me and all of a sudden in like over the course of like a month or 2, I saw like every video I made had a comment from them. All my posts had engagement from them. They were sharing some of my stuff and tagging me in it. By the time they reached out, I'm going to be like, man, I don't know who this guy is, but like, I appreciate it. They like my content. We're jiving. We're on the same, wavelength, whatever. And so that's a good way to get in front of somebody, because they're going to notice that. They're going to be more receptive to talking to you, because you got to realize that some of those big influencers get hundreds of messages a day, and you just have to be the one that stands out. So.
And on that too, just kind of to tag on that, a lot of big influencers get help for their social media posts, for all of that. And I mean, I'm not good with all the different profile or platforms. I'm a Facebook person primarily. So if we're having a conversation on Facebook, I'm going to remember it because it's actually me, and it's not a helper or a VA that's taking on those conversations, because that's important to me. I don't want to ever be somewhere and have someone come up to me and say, well, don't you remember this conversation? Oh, yeah, I do. No, I want it to be real, and I want them to know that it's me and not somebody else. But that's a personal thing, because networking is my superpower too. It's my thing. And I always want the people that I'm meeting, if we've had conversations on Facebook or on some other platform, I want them to know that it was me. And so if somebody's trying to get in front of me, I'm not saying I'm some huge influencer, I'm some big person in real estate, but if someone was trying to catch my attention, I just want them to know that if you catch me on Facebook, it's going to be me responding most likely. Just because that's something that is important to me. But with people that have, they're getting thousands of touches a day because they're that important and they've got that much going on, you're going to have to be in a whole lot of places to make that impact, because they might not always see what you're posting because they might be having a lot of help on those platforms. So you might have to try even harder to get in front of them.
Yep, absolutely.